Go outside and look at your lavender from directly above. If you can see down into the middle of it, if there's a gap, a hollow, a patch of gray woody stems with nothing growing out of them, that plant is already 3 years into a slow collapse, and it will not fix itself. Now here's the part almost nobody connects. That hole in the middle wasn't caused by cold. It wasn't caused by bad soil or the wrong variety or a rough winter. It was caused by what did or didn't happen in a 4-week window in late summer, repeated for a few years in a row. August is the month that quietly decides whether your lavender is a 5-year plant or a 15-year plant. And the reason most gardeners get it wrong isn't laziness. It's that they do something in August that looks exactly like the right job, feels productive, and is actually the thing hollowing the plant out from the inside. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the whole August routine in the order it should actually happen. And at the end, I'll show you the 5-minute job that gives you free lavender plants forever using the material you're about to cut off anyway. Let's get into it. Step 1. Identify what you actually have. Before you touch anything, you need to know which lavender is in your garden, because the August calendar is different for each one, and this is where half the mistakes begin. If your lavender finished flowering back in early or mid-summer and the stems standing on it now are brown, dry, and seedy, you have English lavender. Munstead, Hidcote, and most of the compact purple varieties sold in garden centers fall into this group. These bloom early, they're done by the time August arrives, and they are ready for the main event right now. If your lavender is still going, if it's tall, silvery, sprawling wider than it is high, with long flower stems and a sharper, more camphor-heavy scent, you very likely have a lavandine. Grosso, Provence, and Phenomenal are the ones you'll meet most often. Lavandines are the big hybrids grown for oil. They bloom several weeks later, and they're often still in flower deep into August. Cutting one of these while it's mid-bloom throws away the best part of its season for no benefit. And if your plant has those little upright petals sticking out of the top of each flower head like rabbit ears, that's Spanish lavender, and it plays by different rules again. It flowers in flushes. It's the least cold-hardy of the three, and it needs lighter, more frequent trimming rather than one big annual cut. The practical takeaway is simple. English lavender gets its main August work early in the month. Lavandine waits until the flowers genuinely fade, which usually pushes you to the last week of August or the first week of September. Do not let a calendar tell you to cut a plant that's still blooming. Quick one, if you actually want a step-by-step guide for all this, maybe your plant's struggling or you just can't get it to bloom, I put every fix into one cheat sheet. You get everything in my Plant Fix and Bloom cheat sheet. It's the first link in the description. Let's continue. Step 2. Count backwards, not forwards. Here's the timing rule that matters more than the month on the wall. When you cut lavender, the plant responds by pushing out a flush of fresh, soft green growth. That's what you want. That new growth is next year's flowers and next year's compact shape. But soft, new growth is vulnerable. It needs time and warm weather to firm up and harden before the season turns. If it goes into cold and wet, still soft, it dies back, and the damage often runs down into the older wood behind it. So don't ask what month it is. Ask how many growing weeks you have left. Find your average first frost date, then count back 6 to 8 weeks. That's your deadline. If your first frost typically lands in mid-October, your absolute latest cut is the first week of September, and mid-August is far better. If you're somewhere frost doesn't really arrive until December, you have more room, but you're not off the hook. In mild, wet climates, the thing that kills lavender isn't cold at all. It's a plant sitting in damp air all winter with no shape and no airflow. You still want this done while there's real heat left in the day. If you're reading your frost date and realizing you've already missed the window this year, don't panic and don't rush a hard cut in October. Take off only the spent flower stems, leave the body of the plant alone, and put the full job in your calendar for next August. A late hard cut does more harm than a skipped one. Step 3. The cut itself and the mistake almost everyone makes. This is the part I promised you at the start. What most gardeners do in late summer is deadhead. They go along with a pair of snips, cut each spent flower stalk off at the point where it emerges from the foliage, and step back to admire a clean, tidy, flower-free plant. It looks like a job well done. It is not pruning, it's tidying, and it's the single reason lavender goes hollow. Because when you only remove the flower stems, the leafy body of the plant never gets cut back. Every year it extends a little further, the base turns to bare gray wood a little higher, the whole thing gets taller and looser, and eventually the weight of the outer growth pulls the plant open at the center. That's the hole you looked at in the opening. Deadheading built it, one polite season at a time. Real pruning means taking the entire plant down, not just the flowers. Here's how to do it without hurting anything. Kneel down and look at one single stem from the ground up. At the very bottom, you'll see a section that's gray, hard, and bark-like, with no leaves growing directly out of it. That's old wood. Above it, there's a band of growth that's green and silver and covered in leaves. That's living budded growth. And that band is your entire working area. Your cut goes into the green, never into the gray. Aim to leave roughly 2 to 3 inches of leafy green growth above the woody base, about 2 finger widths. In practice, on a healthy plant, that works out to removing somewhere around 1/3 of the plant's total height and volume, flower stems included, in one confident pass. The reason the gray wood is off limits is biological, not aesthetic. Lavender is a subshrub, and it carries almost no dormant buds in mature old wood. If you cut a stem back into that bare gray zone, there's nothing there to sprout. That stem is simply dead from your cut downward, permanently, and no amount of feeding or watering brings it back. One careless pass into old wood can leave a bald quarter on a plant for the rest of its life. Use sharp shears, not blunt secateurs, and work with the whole plant rather than stem by stem. On an established lavender, you can shear it almost like a hedge, keeping your eye on that green band as your floor. Step 4. Shape it like a dome. And here's why. As you cut, you're not just removing length, you're building a shape that has to survive the next 8 months. Cut the outer edges of the plant slightly lower than the middle, so what you're left with is a firm, tight mound, a dome, not a flat-topped block, and definitely not an open bowl. This is pure physics, not decoration. A flat or hollow top catches rain and holds it. Snow settles in it and sits there. Water works down into the crown, freezes, expands, and the plant splits open along its center. A dome sheds everything that lands on it. Rain runs off the sides and away from the base. There's a second reason too. On a dome, sunlight reaches all the way down the sloping sides to the lower leaves. On a tall, flat, upright plant, the top shades the bottom. Those lower leaves give up, and the plant converts them to bare wood, which is exactly what you're trying to prevent. The shape you cut in August is the shape that keeps the plant green low down for another decade. Step 5. The 2 things to stop doing immediately. Now the part that feels wrong but matters enormously. Stop watering established lavender. I know it's hot. I know everything else in the garden is gasping. Lavender is not everything else. It evolved on dry, stony, sun-hammered Mediterranean hillsides, and mild late summer thirst is a signal it's built to read. It drives roots deeper and firms up growth ahead of winter. Constant surface watering does the opposite. It keeps roots shallow, it keeps the crown damp, and damp around the crown of a lavender is where rot begins. If your plant has been in the ground more than a season, it almost certainly doesn't need you. Container plants are the exception, and I'll come to those. Newly planted lavender from this spring still needs occasional deep soaks, but even there, soak deeply and infrequently rather than sprinkling daily. And stop feeding completely. Do not put fertilizer on lavender in August, and especially not after you've pruned, when the instinct to help it recover is strongest. Nitrogen tells a plant to grow fast and soft at precisely the moment it needs to grow slow and hard. Feed now and you'll produce a flush of tender growth that has no chance of firming up before the weather turns, and you'll lose it. There's a bonus here too. Lavender grown lean produces more concentrated oil and a noticeably stronger fragrance. Rich, well-fed soil gives you a floppy green plant that smells like almost nothing. Step 6. Clear the crown. Take 2 minutes after pruning and get down at the base of the plant. Through the growing season, debris collects under there. Fallen petals, dropped leaves, weeds sheltering in the shade, and very often a layer of bark mulch or compost that's crept up against the stems. Pull all of it away and leave a clean few inches of bare ground right around the base. If you like to mulch, switch materials here. Gravel, pea shingle, coarse grit, or crushed stone are ideal around lavender. They hold no moisture against the crown, they reflect light and warmth back up into the plant, and they keep the base dry. Bark, compost, straw, and wood chip do the exact opposite. They sit wet against the stems all winter and invite the rot you just spent August avoiding. Step 7. The free plants job done the same day. Here's the thing about lavender nobody warns you about when you buy it. Even with perfect pruning, it's a short-lived shrub. A well-managed plant gives you maybe 8 to 12 good years. A neglected, hollowed-out one is finished in 4 or 5, so the smartest gardeners treat every plant as temporary and keep replacements coming. And August is the perfect window because this is when lavender growth is semi-ripe. This year's shoots have firmed up at the base but are still flexible at the tip. That's the exact stage that roots most reliably. You're already holding the material. As you prune, set aside a handful of non-flowering shoots about 3 to 4 inches long. Trim each just below a leaf joint, strip the leaves from the bottom half, and push them into a pot of very gritty, free-draining compost, something like half potting mix, half sharp sand or perlite. Water once, put them somewhere bright but out of harsh direct sun, and keep the air around them humid without letting the mix stay soggy. In 4 to 6 weeks, most of them will have rooted, and you'll have new plants going into next spring for the cost of nothing. If your existing lavender is one of the hollow, split, woody ones, this is genuinely your best move. Don't attempt a hard renovation cut now. A severe cut into old wood at this time of year usually finishes the plant off. Take cuttings instead. Keep the parent going through winter as it is now, and make your decision about it in spring. Step 8. If yours is in a pot. Container lavender needs 2 adjustments. First, do not repot in August. It's tempting when a plant looks cramped, but root disturbance now leaves no time to re-establish before winter, and a lavender heading into cold weather with damaged roots in a wet pot is a plant you'll be replacing. Repotting is a spring job. Note it down and leave it. And second, watering is different in a container. Pots genuinely do dry out, so unlike garden plants, potted lavender still needs a proper soak when the top couple of inches of compost are dry, but only then, and let it drain freely afterwards. While you're there, check the drainage holes actually run clear and aren't blocked by roots or sitting flat on a saucer of water. And start planning now to move that pot before winter, up against a wall, raised off the ground on feet, somewhere it's sheltered from constant rain. For potted lavender, winter wet kills far more than winter cold. So that's your August. Identify what you're growing, count backwards from your frost date, cut into the green and never the gray, shape it into a dome, stop the water and stop the feed, clear the crown, and take cuttings while you've got the material in your hands. Do that this month and the difference won't show up next week. It'll show up in 3 years when your neighbor is digging out a split hollow plant and yours is still a tight silver mound covered in flowers. If this was useful, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is for. Taking the plant you thought you'd ruined and turning it back into the one you wanted. Revive it, then make it bloom. And tell me in the comments which lavender you've got and where you're gardening from. If you're not sure which one it is, describe it and I'll help you work it out. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.